Okay, YouTubers, this is the Angryprepper. So today's video, we're going to talk about 90% of people in this country will die if an event happens, if a specific event happens. The bigger question is, will you be a part of that 90%? So guys, as we all know in the prepper community, we talk about the event that will annihilate 90% of the population. I'm pretty sure the world, but for argument's sake for this video, we're going to talk about the United States alone. And so 90%, guys, of people that might perish, or not might, will perish if an EMP event happens. But we will lose 90% of the population. Now, why is that? Well, everyone here knows, hopefully everyone on here knows what an EMP is, but if you don't, an EMP is an electromagnetic pulse. This is the detonation of a nuclear device above the atmosphere, above the Earth's atmosphere, or high in Earth's atmosphere, rather. And so there's one misconception. There's a couple misconceptions with EMPs, but one of the misconceptions is that it would be one nuclear device to set this in motion. That's not so. It's multiple devices that need to set this in motion, right? So it's multiple devices detonating above Earth's, again, atmosphere, or a certain level in the atmosphere for this to happen. So, of course, you know, through time, I guess through loss in translation, people seem to think is one dead center over like Kentucky or something like that, or wherever it is, center of the United States, 3 miles above Earth's ground. And it's not so. The higher you go, the less effective it is. There is a range where it's perfect for complete total chaos and destruction, but you need multiple warheads to do so. And obviously, we know that a lot of warheads, nuclear warheads, carry more than one warhead on it, if that makes sense. Sorry. Or one missile, rather, carries more than one warhead. So we know that, right? So that's why it's not just one missile. It's one missile with the multiple warheads that can create this chaos. Now, should this happen, what follows next, guys, is nothing short of pandemonium. Now, I did an EMP breakdown on society. I have to do 2 more parts to that. But this is more of a quicker version on what to do immediately upon this happening. Now, for preppers, guys, a lot of us are going to identify what's going to happen or what happens during a blackout, right? So initial blackout, we're like, oh shit, the lights are out. Initially, a lot of us are going to automatically start thinking EMP. Now, think EMP. Don't start screaming and yelling EMP in the street until you can confirm it, because you don't want to look like that asshole. And 2, you want to keep your wits about you before you start flipping out. Now, as preppers, we shouldn't be flipping out. If an EMP goes down, we know what this means. That doesn't mean to flip out, start screaming and yelling in the street. Again, losing your mind. You have to be psychologically ready, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Now, there is a question that I want to ask you guys at the end of this video. This question I would like answered in the comment section. We need, guys, to be psychologically ready. Because it's one thing to be, you know, supply ready, ammo, firearms, the whole 9 yards, to have all of that and be good and squared away. But it's another thing, guys, when the event pops off, are you going to be psychologically ready? Are you going to be psychologically sound to handle what happens next? Because we all know chaos is going to ensue if this event does happen. Now, before I dive deeper into this, I have to be a little responsible in saying that an EMP, guys, is a less likely event to happen. Only because, as of right now, an EMP attack, guys, on any nation around the world is going to put the world financial system into a tailspin. I mean, like, worse than the Depression, right? So if Russia gets hit, China gets hit, or we get hit, that's going to throw everything in a tizzy. So no one, as of right now, can afford an EMP war. No nation can, and no nation's looking to set it off. Now, a lot of you are going to be like, well, what about the BRIC Pack? The BRIC Pack is having its own problems, not getting off the ground, but they're going to have a major problem staying together, because Brazil is doing some bullshit about holding out. Saudi Arabia Everybody knows Saudi princes are arrogant as shit, and so they're going to start making requests. I'm going to tell you this soon, that's going to start breaking the brick pack apart. China and Russia can't seem to get on the same page with a couple of issues. So that in itself, guys, is a good thing. But if they come together, if they lock it down, if they tighten their shit up, and they become financially independent from United States, UK, Israel, I'm talking about the rest of the world, then we can have a problem. But until that happens, an EMP event is less likely to happen. Now, we do have the sun, which has been acting like an asshole for the last couple of years, and there was even a coronal mass injection just 5 days ago or 6 days ago that was pretty strong, that disrupted some radio transmission. So there is that to consider, and that's a little more plausible than an actual EMP war. Now, guys, as you know, an EMP goes off, electricity is the first thing to go out, right? Electricity, anything electronic is going to go flat, kaputs, right? So again, another misconception is cell phones or devices that are not hooked into the, or not being charged, rather, sorry, are going to be affected as well. Now, cell phones will be affected in the sense that they won't work. They'll be a brick. But if your cell phone is not plugged in, it's not going to go out. If your laptop's not plugged in, it's not going to fry, if you will. It's anything plugged into the electrical current, anything plugged into your wall. So if it's not plugged into the wall, it'll be fine, unless it has a large metal base like a car, right? So anything with a large metal base can be affected. But smaller items, they'll work as long as you have a power source that works after an EMP. Now, solar generators, things like that, of those, if they're not protected, they could be affected. Gas generators won't. Solar generators could be, but no one really knows because that hasn't been tested yet. So, guys, electricity goes out. What do? Well, like any other blackout, you start implementing your blackout protocol. If you can confirm it's an EMP, you go into EMP protocol. Now, how are you going to confirm this? Communications. You're going to need a battery-operated radio to do this. You're going to listen to the airwaves. You're going to be like, oh shit, okay, it's just a localized blackout. Let's not panic. Let's go to blackout protocol. But if it's an EMP and if it's confirmed, don't worry about who did it. That's the least of your problem. It doesn't matter if Russia, China, Israel themselves did it, we did it. It doesn't matter who did it. What matters is if you hear it's an EMP, you jump into action, you initiate your EMP protocols. And the EMP protocol, guys, that's a permanent thing, right? At least for the foreseeable future. We're talking about anywhere between, they say, 9 months to a year to 5. That's a large gap, but nonetheless, you're going to prepare for the 5 years. You're not going to prepare for the 6 months, year, 2 years. You're going to prepare for the 5 years or longer, because an EMP, guys, it's a prolonged event. And being that a lot of our transformers are made in China, forget about it. We'll probably never see it, and China's going to have us by the balls. Now, anybody who's on a device that needs to be charged or works on electricity, that's going to be a problem, right? And so if you have somebody who's on oxygen, for example, or anybody who needs a nebulizer because they have chronic asthma attacks, you're going to have to find another power source to get those things working. If not, those people are going to have complications down the line. If you have medications that need to be refrigerated, you're going to have a refrigerator or a mini fridge at the very least hooked up to that power source so that it can keep running. Now, if you're on medications that are refrigerated, the problem is you need to get more of those. Now, we saw a character in 1 Second After had to deal with that with his daughter, and his daughter wound up dying months later because she started dying from complications of not having her diabetic medications. So if you read the book 1 Second After, which you should, that's a pivotal point in the book because everybody starts to think, shit, what if that's my husband, my wife, my kids? You start thinking in that sense. So you need to come up with a backup plan for them and come up with a way how to get their medications, but at the very least, have their medications long enough to outlast this event, which will almost be impossible. Almost. And keep in mind, guys, even if you have that medication on hand, medication does expire. And then it starts losing its potency after that. So you have to consider that. Now, what are you going to do for electricity? Well, generators are good. Solar generators, if not affected by the EMP, solar generators are a way to go because you don't have to worry about gas. you have a renewable source, the sun, and a lot of them run pretty quietly, if not quiet in general. Other than the fan going to keep it cool, those things are really good. And solar generators or solar power banks, if you will, guys, they are way better now than they were 2-3 years ago. So, guys, that's something to consider. Gas generator, obviously that goes without saying, but you also have to keep in mind gasoline does expire as well or lose its potency. So you have to consider that. Now, obviously, things to generate light, solar lanterns, I'm a big fan of those. Those things last. I've had one for about 3-4 years now. So those are good too. Solar lanterns and then lanterns that run on batteries, except for with batteries, guys, you use those, you run out of them. Again, a solar lantern's good. So have both as backup, guys. Have a solar lantern and have one that runs on battery. Have a lantern that also runs on gas or flammable liquid gas, right? So have one of those as well. Have 3 backups or 2 backups to your whatever the main lantern you're going to use. You have to come up with backups. Have a gas generator that you're going to use on bigger items, and then have a solar generator that you're going to use on smaller items, right? Items like that fridge to keep the medication refrigerated. Those are also, that's a good thing to do. Have a small fridge and have a solar generator, guys, dedicated to that fridge, so that you're not sitting there running around moving this thing around. Now, I know it's easy for me to say, you know, solar generators are expensive. They're $1,000 above. You have to be Johnny on the spot with the sales. Sorry, EcoFlow, Jackery, Blue, I think it's Blue Yeti or Blue Eddy, whatever it is. They have, Blue Eddy, sorry, they have sales. You just have to be like on the ball with those sales when they pop up. Flashlights, guys, headlamps, these things are good. Candles. Now, if you're going to use candles, be careful with the candles. If you're going to have candles, have a fire extinguisher around. And if you don't have a fire extinguisher around, do yourself a favor and have a thing of water around when you're using candles. And if you can, put a candle in the center of a bowl with some water around it, just in case it gets knocked over. Because you don't want fire, guys, during an EMP event. Your house is going to burn down to the ground if you can't get that fire out before it gets out of control. So try to do yourself a favor, guys, and, you know, have a fire extinguisher around, a pot of water when using candles. And please don't have candles lit all over the house like some romantic movie bullshit. Don't do that, because you're definitely going to burn your house down sooner or later. A ham radio, guys, a two-way radio, anything, again, that's going to run on a power source that you can communicate with, or at the very least, listen to information that's going on. Now, of course, guys, with ham radios and two-way radios and even a battery-operated radio, you have to be super careful about what you're listening to and who you're listening to. Because the problem with that is that false information, especially being that we've seen false information given out, that can be given out over the air. And then you'll think it's something else going on, and it's not. So you got to be able to decipher what's going on when you're listening to radio messages during a EMP event. Now, guys, water is going to be the bigger issue. So obviously, if you live in a city, water is going to be a major issue. If you live out in a suburb area, or you live and you have your own land, you have a stream in the back, you don't have to worry about it. You have a well, you don't have to worry about it. But if you live in the city, guys, especially tall buildings above, I think it's 6-7 stories, you're going to have an issue getting water. Now, if you live in a building that's lower than 6-7 stories, you're going to have trickling water even after the system shuts down for a little bit, not for long. But if you live in a building like this, 32 stories, if you live in a building that's 21 stories, as soon as the tank, the gravity tank above runs out of water, you're done. You're not going to have any kind of water coming out of your system. A smaller building is going to have trickling water coming out of the faucet for as long as the water in the main is there. And once the water in the city main runs out, you're out of water. Now, if they open up the reservoir water supply manually, you're going to be getting untreated water trickling out of your pipes, out of your faucet. Sorry, so you're going to have to be careful about that and drinking that water, meaning you're going to have to boil your water, and you're going to have to figure out a way to boil your water, because water here in the stoves here in the city, guys, if it runs on gas and the gas line's open, you're fine. But if you have these electric stoves that they've been putting in a lot of the newer apartments, you're screwed. You're going to have to figure out a way how to boil that water. Now, if you have a home, guys, then you're going to have to get a manual pump to pump out of that well, because all water, unless you have a gravity system, is being pumped out of the ground into your home at some fashion. So you're going to have to get a manual pump if you live in a house that has a well. If you are attached to the city main and you have a home, you're going to have to come up with a backup plan. Now, the backup plan, guys, is with water. Stock water. Put water away. Get one of those 5-gallon jugs. Stack them in your home. Get one of those bathtub bladders. Something called a water bob. This thing here, guys, you can put in your tub and it gives you 100 gallons of water. And after that, if you're still getting water trickling out of your pipes, I would say, again, filter your water out and do the best you can with boiling it if you can. If you can't, hopefully you have one of those water filtering systems. Hopefully that'll help. Nonetheless, guys, water is going to be the major concern for everybody who's dependent on it, especially in the city. Now, your water solutions, are going to be collecting water, collecting rain. Collect rainwater, guys, obviously when it rains. Again, the bathtub bladder, that's going to be a good thing to do. Collecting rain is going to be a task, especially if you live in an apartment building, especially if you live in the city. If you live in a home, it's not going to be too big of a task. But if you live in a city, in a tall building or a smaller building, that's going to be a task. And when it rains, guys, even if you have enough water, still collect it. Don't be like, oh man, we got enough water around here. Don't do that. Keep collecting the water because you never know. You can go through, and we've seen it before, weeks without rain. You don't want to be that family. Food, guys. Food production is going to come to a grinding halt. The only food that's going to be left after an EMP is whatever is in stores and supermarkets. In supermarkets, it said 3 days, which obviously, guys, if there's a rush on food, that 3 days is going to come down to a couple of hours. If you know it's an EMP attack, guys, hopefully you have enough food stored away. Again, I have anywhere between 1.5 years to 2 years of food. I'm trying to get to 3 to 4, and I lost a ton of food. I lost about a week's worth of food, so that was a little bit of a setback. Some of you saw that video here. If you haven't, watch it here. But guys, food is going to be the major problem. Now, you can go 30 days without food. You can only go 3 days without water. So water takes precedence over food. Once you have your water squared away, guys, food is going to be your next concern, right? And again, you got 30 days to figure it out. Don't take 30 days to figure it out. As a prepper, you should have it already. Don't sit there and wait till it happens. Go, oh shit, I got 30 days to eat. Don't do that. Have your shit squared away now and immediately, guys. Don't take any more time than you need to store that food away. Start storing it away today. Now, your food solutions. Grow your own food. That's number one if you can. Raise your own food if you can. Can your own food if you can. Meaning if everything is intact like it is now, start canning your own food, guys. There's 1,000,001 canning videos out there. Find somebody, follow them, can your shit. Canning food's going to go a long way for you. Growing your own food, obviously, is going to go a long way for you, and it's healthier. Raising your own food, chicken, livestock, things of that nature, that's going to be healthier for you as well, but you'll be dependent on yourself. Those people who are dependent on the system, i.e. those that live in the city, they're going to be screwed. Now, if you live in a city because you can't leave, canned goods, guys. Freeze-dried food, dehydrated food. Dehydrated foods, guys, the best that I tell you can go with is Peak Refuel, and then there are a couple other companies that you can go with as well. But MREs, they're not bad, but keep in mind, MREs are high in sodium. So if you have high blood pressure, you might not want to look at those. But guys, these are the things that are going to keep you fed. And keep in mind, guys, if something happens, if an EMP attack happens, you implement your EMP protocol, you need to start thinking about what you're going to eat after that 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. You have to start planning ahead of time. Don't wait till you get close to your 2-3 years of coming close to your food ending and then be like, oh, we got to think about something. You got 6 months of food left. Now you're trying to figure out what to do. Don't do that. Start thinking about it immediately. The first meal you eat, you start thinking about how you're going to replace food after that. And even if you have 3, 4, 5 years of food, guys, start thinking of where and how you're going to get that food after that mark. Don't wait till, again, 6 months, 3 months to the end of your shit. Start thinking about it immediately. Now, there will be a psychosis break. You will see many, many, many people lose their shit. If they know, guys, that this is an EMP and the power's not going to be back on for a couple of years, of course, our government is going to lie to those and tell you a couple of months. It'll be a couple of years. And you're going to see people with major psychosis breaks. First of all, the crazies are already going to be crazier because there'll be no medications for them to take. There'll be no system to keep them in check. What little check that keeps them in, there'll be nothing for them. So they're going to be the first people to lose their shit and completely fall apart. Then you're going to have those reliant on the system. They're going to fall apart. Then you got those that are reliant on social media to get their bullshit out, to talk to their cameras like I'm doing now. They're going to fall apart. You're going to see multiple psychosis breaks, and then you're going to see suicide skyrocket. Now, there was reports of suicide skyrocketing here in the United States last year. I wonder why. And it wasn't because of the lockdown. I'm going to go with the other thing. Now, the arm ticket. So you're going to see all of this, guys, happen like that. And I would say within the first month, it might be okay. But when people start realizing what this is, it's going to skyrocket. You might even see your neighbors take out their entire family because they don't want to live through this. So you're going to see a lot of this. And these are the things you have to be psychologically ready for. It's easier for me to say it, being that I've been in the middle of a lot of shit. I can handle a lot of things. Some of you guys, a lot of you guys can handle it. But there might be that one thing that drives you over the edge. You got to be able to handle it. You have to be psychologically ready above anything else. You can have all the gear in the world. If you are not psychologically ready, guys, it doesn't fucking matter. People who are going to be excluded from this, preppers, because we'll be ready, gear-wise, psychologically wise. Politicians, they have places to fall back on. If an EMP goes off, they whisk a lot of them away to backup locations. Not every politician's got, a lot of politicians, the smaller ones like AOC and them, they're fucked. They're out in the open with everybody else. But the higher echelon politicians, well, they're going to be whisked away to backup shelters. If they can get there too. That's the other thing. If they can get there, they'll be whisked away. If not, they're out on their own or dead. Then you have the savages. Now, those are the people, again, psych patients, crazy people, just bad people that are going to adjust really well and really fast. And they're going to take advantage of the system or the system being down. Those are the people that you have to be looking out for. The savages are going to come out fast. You also have to contend with good people turning into savages just to make sure their family survives. Here's the solutions to this whole thing, guys. Don't be distracted with the bullshit. Do not let hope distract you. People are going to, and what I mean by don't let hope distract you, don't look at something and be like, oh shit, I heard that they're going to have this thing implemented in the next couple of weeks. Don't let hope distract you. Stay focused, stay prepared, keep planning as if this thing is not going to end. And if it ends earlier, great. But if it doesn't, you're still ready. If you let hope distract you, guys, hope is going to crumble you, and your psychosis is going to break. Do not let hope be a distraction. Rely on yourself, guys. Do not rely on anyone else. Rely on yourself. Rely on your community that you got together. Try not to rely, again, on false hope. That is a bad thing, man. Don't rely on anybody else. Don't rely on another community. You can talk to other people. You can get things going, but don't rely on them. And most importantly, I said it before, I have to say it again, be psychologically prepared. If you're not psychologically prepared, guys, none of this shit matters. None of anything you got together or gathered away matters. Do yourself a favor. Become psychologically ready. Read these psychological books that can get you ready, and put yourself in shitty situations, guys, that are going to tax your mentality or your mental toughness. Go Ruck, and there are numerous courses like Go Ruck now that will toughen your mental toughness and test your mental toughness. So look into courses like that, guys, because that is going to get you ready. If you are a doctor that works in the ER, or a fireman, or a cop, or you're out in the Bering Sea fishing for crab, your mental toughness is already there. If you're in the military, your mental toughness is there. But it doesn't do you any harm to toughen it up just a little more. Now, guys, question of the video, or question of the day. How long can you survive if an EMP attack was to happen in North America? Please do me a favor, answer that in the comment section below. Other than that, guys, thank you for watching. Sorry for these long videos, but I'm trying to get more information out in one video instead of splitting them up in 2 different videos. Other than that, guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.